Hello and welcome to our 8th Artisans and Scholars of Darton discussion. Iarnulfr Thorolfsson has been in the SCA since 1991 and has spent that time developing many skills and interests which have got recognition, including joining the Order of the Laurel in 2007. But he is much more interested in talking about the stuff he makes. He specialises in using period tools or close approximations to make lifestyle items from the early medieval period. He often has many projects on the go, the most recent of which includes fur tanning, tents, yurts, and yurt frames. But he does many, many, many other things. So welcome, Iarnulfr. Finally got So we kick off with the first question, and as we discussed earlier, you answer with anything that you do that answers the question. So what drew you to anything you do art-wise?
That's the thing. I don't specifically have one art. And in part, I don't do this because I joined the SCA in general. I have been maniacally interested in gathering as many skills as possible as far back as I can remember.
Yeah.
So mostly it's the fact that I cannot make my brain sit still, and I am always acquiring new skills, even when I'm bored.
Yeah.
So
maybe get out of the boredom.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah. I think in educational parlance, you would be called a lifelong learner.
I don't understand how anyone can't be.
Some people think they stop learning and that what they learn is all they're going to learn. And I feel sad for those people, because there's many things.
So I think for reenactment, my main purpose is to see if I can make the items that a person from the time would have had as close to the same type of tools that they would have used.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I carefully make an exactly accurate tool, but it does mean that if I can't get an accurate tool, I use the tool that will leave or make the closest mark or impression or device that was used in period.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes that means I'm making a tool from scratch that ends up being identical to the medieval tool.
Yeah.
Sometimes that means I can choose an off-the-shelf tool that's modern.
Yeah.
Sometimes that means I have to disallow an entire class of modern tools. Because, there are some tools we have, modern tools we have, that just don't act like the tools used in the Middle Ages, or just do a thing that you don't see on the working items of the Middle Ages. So I try and avoid things, sandpaper.
Yeah.
I avoid the use of sandpaper because it was just not a thing, and they didn't really have an analog that did the same thing. So in woodworking, I prefer to use scrapers and edge tools.
Yeah.
Rather than sandpaper. And the other thing is, yes, a modern power tool will speed up a big task, but you have to think, is the power tool going to leave the same surface texture or tool marks the item would have had in period? Nothing destroys my immersion of a piece of woodwork by noticing that someone has used a power sander on it. And it may be a beautiful piece.
Yeah.
The tool marks tell me that this was produced with entirely, with modern equipment, and it destroys my immersion. And that's that bugbear to bear. Yeah. Many of us come to this of needing the thing as fast as possible, and any route is fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is interesting, because I mean that's back in the day in my undergraduate I studied archaeology. I don't drink enough to be an archaeologist, so I didn't actually go any further than my undergraduate, but I do remember doing lots of reading about the experimental archaeology and how you go back and you make something, and then you go, oh, look at the marks it's in. What do I have that could make those marks? Or I make a thing with several things and see which one looks the closest. Is that kind of how you would do it? Would you approach the or is there things they used?
Well, in many cases, you can find the tools.
Yeah.
So, for instance, at the moment, I'm doing a lot of leather tanning.
Yeah.
So I'll just bring up an album. Where is it? Not that one.
Because there's the usual documentary resources as well, isn't there? Like the images of people doing the job.
Well,
sometimes.
So I should put a trigger warning on this one because this does show graphic images of flensed goat hide.
Right. Okay. I will make a note to see if I can demarcate in case people want to flick past it.
So I'm just going to share a screen.
Yep.
Okay, can we see that?
I can see that, yes.
So this is a goat hide that I tanned some years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, you can see for the purpose, I have not built a period stretching frame to stretch the hide out. I've just used plywood and a gun stapler because I was in a hurry, and this was not particularly for a medieval purpose.
Yeah.
But look at the tool I'm using to clean it.
Mm.
That is a basic flint scraper of a type that you find archaeologically going back almost 2.5 million years.
Yeah.
I have not found a better tool for the job. The modern tools made for this job, for doing it by hand, are worse than this tool.
Yeah.
So, you know, you hold it in the same way that we think they were held in period.
Yeah.
You can cut the flesh off the hide and you clean the hide down like that, and it works.
Yeah.
I was using one not 40 minutes ago to do this exact job.
Yeah.
So sometimes the modern tool doesn't make things any better.
Yeah.
So start with just the basic tool to bang the rocks together.
Yeah. Because that was always fascinating, the rock, the flint napping and things, and the having, I think in biology and seventh form, holding an ancient stone tool that they like had on loan briefly and going, it fits my hand. Because if you know how you can, you know, our hands haven't changed massively, and if you change things, if you can knock it off, you can make them comfortable and fit, and they're probably just as easy to mold as anything else.
Well, that's the thing. The stone tools, that in many cases the flint knives are as sharp or sharper than a steel knife.
Yeah, I think I've heard of obsidian being used as surgical tools. Yeah,
and the other thing is stones are almost everywhere.
Yeah.
So I have been making stone tools since I was around 8 or 9 years old.
Nice. Yeah.
And using them from as soon as I made them. So scrapers, arrowheads, cutting blades.
Mm.
And every so often I'll do things like demonstrate the use of a stone tool to joint an entire beast for cooking.
Yeah.
For a while, but it's easily doable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so that the stone tool, how was that bringing us to? Basically, it's a better than modern tools, and therefore, and you can also, so you can tell, would there be a difference in the cut and how the item, how the thing you've used the tool on? I know that you can, archaeologists look at the tools and see like pattern wear marks and stuff on the tools, but can you see that on the
not really
made?
You can't tell that the skin was flensed with a stone tool or with a modern steel knife.
Yeah.
Slight difference is that the stone tool often has a serrated razor sharp edge rather than a single edge.
Yeah.
When you do screw up and make a knife strike on the hide, you can see several cuts from a stone tool. Whereas a single cut, we made a mistake with a modern edge tool.
Yeah.
And this thing, they're not better than, it's just that for some technologies, that's all the technology you need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need the sharp edge and yeah, and something that also, if you need to sharpen it, is not necessarily a whole palaver if you already know how to make it. Or you get another stone.
I just get another stone and make another tool.
Yeah.
But that the flint scraper in the photos I just showed, I've been using that scraper for more than 20 years. So if you lost that one or had to make another one, there may be a momentary pout before you go, oh, bother, make another one. Yeah, that one came from a nodular flint that I picked up on the beach at Kikarangu on the Kaikoura coast.
Yeah.
Prior to 1994.
Yeah.
So I've had it for more. It's been in that tool configuration for 20 years, but I've had it for a lot longer than that.
Yeah.
Shall we move along?
Yeah. So basically, in other words, you get interested in making a thing and trying something, and therefore you learn how to make it as close as you can by looking at things as closely as you can and knowing what you already know. Would that be a summary?
Pretty much. And the other thing is, I had a non-standard childhood. So I came to reenactment already having most of the skills needed. Yeah. Simply because pre-modern skills were still being taught in my family because we regarded them as still being required. Yeah. So open fire cooking, use of old style hand tools, starting a fire without matches. These were all things I'd done decades before I got involved in reenactment. Yeah. And I do often forget that many modern people are having to work backwards from a modern idea of how to make and use items to get to the medieval and earlier period to use. So often they don't have a map of what hand tool can even produce a finished object. Yeah. And in large part, I don't do things for myself in many cases. Yeah. And I might want the finished object, but in many cases, the reason I'm doing it with as close as I can get to a period tool set is to show that it can be done with the basic tools. You don't need to immediately go out to a modern power tool or chemical. So I like doing displays where I'm making something from scratch on site with found materials found on site. Yeah. And that might just be building a forge out of local earth. Yeah. But in the past, that has been getting several of us together to cooperate on doing a calligraph scroll done on site with ink made on site, with pigments made on site. Yeah. So it's mostly about showing people that it's quite easy to bang the rocks together. Yeah. I mean, what am I trying to think of? It's I keep mentioning my flax thing and the way it's the process of growing it and whatnot has taught me to think about materials and fabric differently. But there is a mindset that modern people have that you have to go to the store to get a thing. There is that, and that's one of my other bugbears is that the coming to reenactment now in the early part of the 22nd century, 21st still, aren't we? 21st century rather. We haven't got that far ahead yet. There is a huge amount of sources available at the click of a button online. Yeah. That did not exist when a lot of us started reenactment. Yeah. So, back in the 90s, you couldn't just go to Arm Street and order an entire suit of armour. No. Now, many people today cannot afford to go to Arm Street and order an entire suit of armour, but the point is there is an immense amount of resources immediately available. When some of us started this thing in the 80s and 90s, and bearing in mind I've been doing
things like this.
Yeah. Well, the main thing was that you were only as good as the library you had access to.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't a university academic library, then you were stuck.
Yeah.
And so there was an awful lot of scavenging and repurposing items from op shops and secondhand sales and junk stores.
Yeah.
And that, to a certain degree, is a mindset that has been left behind by many modern reenactors. Useful mindset to have, because we ended up having to make so many things from scratch. And they were only as good as the research we had at the time.
Yeah.
It still meant that we built the skills.
Yeah.
So, and I'm one of the few calligraphers in the SCA that makes their own pens.
Yeah.
And I'm not a very good blacksmith, but I've started from scratch, and you can see the image behind me, bag tap from an iron ore smelt, just to see, okay, can I actually smelt iron? And yes, I can.
Yeah.
Only a few things been made of the iron bloom that we did, and it wasn't particularly great iron. We didn't strip it of phosphorus well enough.
Yeah.
But one piece came out as very nice steel.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So buying stuff off the shelf is easy.
Yeah.
I don't do these things because they're easy.
No.
But also I do quite like not needing to get something off the shelf.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
will pick up a craft, and I will do enough of it to say, okay, if my life depends on it, I can do that thing.
Yeah.
Okay, bored now, stop, next one.
Yeah. Or if I come across another skill that I want to learn, I have this in my tool bag that I can use again if I need to.
That's the thing. I cannot create a pattern welded knife as good as many of the other smiths in the SCA.
Yeah.
I cannot hold a candle to Sigurd's work. I cannot hold a candle to Peter's work. But I can teach someone to blacksmith well enough that they can use a club hammer and a pile of heat beads to forge the axle of their car straight again when they're stuck in Siberia.
Yeah.
Which a friend of mine has done, having done a little bit of blacksmithing with me.
Yeah.
So and things like that. Yeah. So I've been, stuck in a situation in Patagonia where the fact that I could do some flint napping actually got me out of a bit of trouble.
Yeah. So would it be true to say perhaps that your broader skill set and your particular mindset is one of being able to see the potential in things, and also to have the skills to make some changes to other things? I'm a bit weaker in the second part, but I just keep thinking, like, if you can see the shape of a tool in a stone and know how to get it out of there, or see the potential for a certain tool that can do a certain job.
It's not so much that, it's that everywhere I go, I'm looking for materials.
Yeah.
And I am always scavenging materials from discarded things. And it's the doing what you have with what you have to hand.
Yeah.
And I will collect materials for years on end before I get a project ready to the point where I want to do it.
Yeah.
But also, setting up a site and you discover that no one has a knife.
Yeah.
Someone, swears and then starts walking half a kilometre back to their tent to get a knife.
Yeah.
And I bend down and pick up 2 rocks off the ground and make a pebble.
Yeah.
And solve the problem of needing the knife. So it's shortcuts like that.
Yeah. It's things that some people would think of as a long cut, but with knowledge it makes shortcuts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's just, yeah, all these neat, useful little, not necessarily little skills, but skills that add up to being able to make neat things or in time things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next question then is, because you've been doing it all your life, whether or not you expected to like it or not. Well, maybe are there any particular skills you picked up that maybe you liked that you didn't expect to?
Not off the top of my head. You will notice about me that I avoid the formal parts of the society.
Yeah.
So I have never, I like doing things, making things, teaching things to people.
Yeah.
But I have never particularly enjoyed or gone out of my way to engage with, for want of a better word, the LARP side of things. I take part in it when my participation is required and when it makes things better for everybody.
Mm.
But that's the side of things that I don't like.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any particular art or science that I haven't enjoyed while I'm doing it.
Yeah.
There are some things that I only do it when I have to. I'm trying to think of something that I haven't liked.
Was there anything that surprised you that you liked it? Like if you just did a thing because you needed a thing and you went, actually, I could do this more often. This is fun.
I don't think so, no. I don't think all of the crafts I've picked up I've enjoyed.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say any of them surprised me.
Okay.
This is because I came to the SCA with many of the skills already there,
yeah,
place to use them, rather than coming to the SCA looking to discover skills.
Yeah.
And so many of the, I began calligraphy and illumination 10 years before I found the SCA.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was already doing small bits of blacksmithing. I was already doing, tanning hides. I was already, making stone tools. I was already doing woodwork.
Yeah.
So the only major new thing that I've picked up that I've massively expanded, and this thing, while I have expanded many of the skills I already had, the only majorly new thing that I've massively expanded is probably the use of sewing of large items, so and yurts, and that's more of a necessity that we have to do so many camping events, than having had a particular burning interest and desire to make tents. And myself and my partner Elena note that if a couple can make a tent together, in fact, if a couple can make many tents together, nobody is stabbed and you're still a couple afterwards, you do have a very secure relationship. Because making a large tent is such a difficult sewing project that it will test your temper and your equipment and your
communication and things like that.
And I've made more than 10 of them this year.
Yes. Okay, so I mean, I suppose it's a case of, even if you don't love it and like go woohoo, some fun all the time, you're at least getting the satisfaction of knowing that you're achieving an end, and that can be enjoying in as much as anything else.
That's the thing. Any skill where you end up with a finished object, you satisfaction having completed it. So that happens quite regularly. What does destroy things for me is if something becomes an obligation. That does make it very difficult for me to continue to enjoy it and to finish a task. So that is that, and particularly if there is something that you've near reached burnout point on something. But but because you have the skills, people will come to you and ask you to do something.
Yeah.
Oh, this will be really good for the group, but I'm sort of burned out on this, but I don't really want to disappoint them.
Yeah.
It can be quite soul destroying. So you have to watch yourself.
Yeah.
If you get in that situation.
I suppose then that brings us into the next question of what keeps you interested. So if there is something you can do, or maybe if someone comes up to you and wants a thing, then would the thing be to say it would help you if you were teaching them to do the thing, or would there be something else?
It depends. If someone wants me to do the thing for them,
yeah,
the thing for money,
yeah,
no. And sometimes I will get infected by someone else's enthusiasm for a thing where I might contribute some materials or planning.
Yeah.
And that can generate my own enthusiasm.
Yeah.
It's hard because I'm not a solo artisan.
Yeah.
I often, some of my biggest achievements have been project achievements.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of preparatory work in the background for an event, but that's mainly so that something like an iron smelt can happen at the event.
Yeah.
And it's the teaching is my main enthusiasm for why I do projects and arts and science things at events.
Yeah. So it might keep you, so a bit of teaching might keep you enthused enough to help them get started and maybe see it through a little bit, but it's definitely not if they want you to do it yourself for them. Yeah,
and that's the thing. I occasionally take on projects where I will do something for someone else just because I can see that it would help them.
Yeah.
But I had to be careful how many of those I take on. Otherwise, I do have some guilt projects that have been waiting for a decade.
Yeah.
And that becomes a serious motivational problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So
there are people out there who know what those guilt projects are, and I'm deeply sorry.
Yeah. All right. So get Zane to get Iarnulf to teach you a thing, or don't ask him to do a thing. I mean, if it's the thing you're getting burnt out on and you don't have any requests to do it, then it's just a case of put it aside, right?
Well, that's the thing. I regularly put aside skills for decades at a time.
Yeah, and then come back to them
come back to them. So, so that's the thing. I've recently picked up fur tanning.
Yeah,
I haven't done fur tanning since the 80s.
Yeah,
and in the past 2 months, have started doing it again.
Yeah.
And that's because someone had a project that set off my interest, and so I'm assisting them with that project.
Yeah.
And it's not a medieval project. It is a cosplay project, but it needed a large amount of fur.
Yeah.
We have a source of ethically sourced fur that needs tanning.
Yeah.
So away we go.
Yeah. Cool. So is there anything that surprised you about any of your arts? Any skills? Or is it just all building so much on previous knowledge that it's just like,
it's all building on things that I've already done.
Yeah. So it just seems like, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, I'm a scientist. I do a literature review before everything. I hit the academic literature.
Yeah.
So I'm generally, I'm not looking for novelty.
Yeah.
I'm looking for skill.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I review the published literature. I hit the archaeological literature.
Yeah.
I hit the scientific literature.
So that way, it surprised other people.
Yeah, so I may surprise other
needed.
people, but the thing is, I'm not looking to surprise myself, because I research every project before I do it. So generally, it's there are some small surprises in how a new material works in hand.
Yeah.
New chemical behaves on something, but it's hard to say any one thing that surprised me. Have any particular great surprises that have struck me.
It just made me think about those portable holes that you gave to us just before our wedding, that you made for us to put our banner poles in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because you'd pulled those out of the Hutt River, hadn't you? And
they were scrap iron I pulled out of the Hutt River.
Yeah. And there was something about the way you smacked it, that you made one and then you made another one, and something was interesting pattern, so you redid the other one. So
that was just the one of my hammers had been loaned to someone who used it for hammering in tent pegs.
Yeah.
So I was slightly annoyed at the damage that my hammer came back with.
Yeah.
But I noticed while forging those,
the
poles,
the holes. Yeah.
And I'd intended to forge that leaf shape into the ring at the top.
Yeah.
Noticed while doing it that the damage to the cross peen on my hammer actually improved the look of the forged leaves.
Yeah.
So, but again, that wasn't a surprise.
Yeah.
In that
it was a happy accident.
It was a happy accident.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I've previously made, intentionally shaped swages and to introduce textures to iron before. So it was serendipity rather than surprise.
Yeah. Yeah. Happy accidents are fine. You can go, oh, that's nice. Okay. So you've got many useful skills. Can you name a top one or even a top 5?
Again, this thing, I do most of the things for early period stuff. So I do a lot of woodworking.
Yep.
I do a lot, a moderate amount of metalworking. So I do ironsmithing. Mostly making small accoutrements, small knives. I do fine silver work occasionally.
Yeah, like the thing you made for my mum.
Yep. So mostly just hammered silver work. I do some fine sheet brass work and repousse work. I do occasional metal casting. But again, I'm mostly doing that as a demonstration to people of the technology rather than through any desire to achieve mastery myself.
Yeah.
Showing people that you can do basic metal casting with a pile of sand, some clay, and some charcoal and something to hold the metal you're melting in.
Yeah.
Probably my most developed skill is one that I use for relatively little these days, which is my calligraphy.
Yeah.
I could. Whoops! I just shattered the glass.
Oh dear.
I was reaching for a mouse that wasn't there. And I will clean that up later. Where are we?
You don't want to pause while you go and deal with that?
No, it's a darkened room.
Okay. Just don't put your hands in the shatter.
Yeah. Here is the album.
So calligraphy. Perhaps while you're looking at those, do you have a hardest or most challenging skill?
Motivation.
Right.
The skill that is hardest and most challenging.
Yeah.
Let me just get back into sharing.
Yep.
So this one's quite an old one. So
Yeah.
this is a scroll that was sent from the University of Canterbury medieval group to the Ildhafen on the occasion of them becoming a barony.
Yeah.
One was particularly fun because it was a cooperative effort. So I did the calligraphy and the rubrication.
What's the rubrication? Sorry, the
red letters.
Okay. Yep.
Whereas the illuminated painted letters were done by Mistress Kana, Joe Drysdale.
Yeah.
So I do random practices. So those were done at work just while bored.
Yep.
I will test out particular period alphabets. So there is a practice piece where I was doing some stuff in the style of the Book of Kells. So there's a couple of other alphabets there, but the alphabet across the top,
yeah,
the quick brown dog sentence down the base, are specifically trying out insular minuscule.
Yeah.
Again, more just random practice pieces. A little bit of Tolkien poetry.
Nice. Yep.
Party invites. And some of the stuff is going back 25 years or more.
Yeah.
Some Old English. Unfortunately, this one got rain damaged when it was on a display sheet at an event.
Yeah.
Some more Elvish. An award for a quest that was run at the feast.
Yeah.
Christchurch. Some Fëanorian letters for those who follow Lord of the Rings. I could actually do calligraphy in Elvish from Lord of the Rings before I was doing any English or Latin alphabet calligraphy.
Yeah.
More practice pieces. Illuminated desk while bored in Western Australia in 1994. Presentation fealty scroll.
Yep.
Challenge of war in Latin. Practicing getting letter shapes right for presentation scroll.
Yep.
So practicing capital letters. Proclamation.
Yep.
From Artisans and Lillibati. This one's quite. Go back one. This one was a stunt scroll done at Canterbury Fair, so we did a lot of the preparation of some of the pigments for the illumination and the ink on site.
Yep.
And this one's a fairly recent one. This is a replacement for the Old English piece that I showed earlier.
Rain damaged one. Yep.
Rain damaged. So this one is goose quill pen with a carbon black ink on vellum. And I was able to finish the calligraphy, hand it across the table to Kat.
Yeah.
She did Patricia, and she did the illuminated capital letter with gold.
Yes. Kat, of course, who we talked to a few months ago.
Yeah.
About her calligraphy. Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing I enjoy most is teaching in cooperative projects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So teaching cooperative projects, calligraphy, motivation is challenging. Right. So I mean, considering your mundane profession is geologist, has anything in the SCA you've learned helped you with either your mundane work or your Scadian stuff?
If anything, it's the other way around.
Yeah.
So I use my mundane work to supply a large amount of the raw materials that I use for things like iron smelts and so on. So
you know what a useful rock looks like.
Yeah. So a lot of the iron ore that I smelted at Rowaney Festival one time came from exploration projects that I'd been working on in Western Australia and South Australia.
Yeah.
The various mineral pigments that I have occasionally used myself or supplied to other
Yep.
creators, again, have been sourced from various places that I've worked, including Azure Lapis Blue from Lapis Lazuli that I sourced in Chile.
Yeah.
Various iron ore pigments from Australia, and I have pigments that I've sourced from rockfalls in Christchurch from the earthquakes.
Yeah.
Because some of the rockfalls brought down some excellent examples of limonite iron ore that can be used for yellow and red.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's the other way around.
Yeah. Okay, that's really cool. It's still useful though, isn't it? Okay, so you're stuck on a desert island, retreater 1. What 5 tools would you be taking with you?
None.
None? You make them all yourself there?
Well, the point is the island will have rocks, and I can start with.
If you got a rock, you got everything you need, right? Some vegetation that you can burn.
Yeah, that's the thing. How desert is a desert island?
This is the thing we've also discussed, is we've also assumed that like various people have been there before. It's like a serial retreat where people go and make stuff and then they leave things behind and the next person can use them.
Yeah, so this is the thing. I have been stuck in places with next to no tools. And yeah, it's usually a matter of yes, there are some minimal tools I always take with me. So I seldom don't have a knife.
Yeah.
But generally, as long as I've got a knife and a water container, I can start making the rest.
Yeah.
And so and even then, if I have rocks, I have a knife.
Yeah.
Very shortly after.
And if you've got rocks, then you can, well, presumably you can find something that you can use to hold water. So a water source, maybe you'd be wanting, but it's not really a tool.
A water source is good. And that's the thing. You can, if there's rocks and clay, and vegetation, then you can start doing most things.
Yeah. Just have to go through a few steps before you can get to the other things. Yeah. Yes, very useful. So perhaps you need to be the first person on this deserted island to make a few things for people.
Yeah, that's the thing. The closest I've ever had to a religious experience was when I discovered a many thousand-year-old stone tool workshop in Australia.
Yeah.
And so that was, mapped off and shown to the archaeologists and local tribe there to see if they knew about it.
Yeah.
But it was a meter-thick band of high-quality chert.
Yeah.
Through a hillside, and you could see where people had been levering blocks out, and you could see where someone had sat 10, 15, 20,000 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Stone tools. So yeah, basically, so long as they're rocks, I'm mostly fine.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so when we have this deserted island of retreat 1, we put you on there first, and
maybe some safety glasses. There you go.
Okay, safety glasses. Excellent. That's a bit harder to. You'd have to do a bunch of things before you can come up with them. So yeah, safety glasses. Maybe safety equipment in general, but particularly glasses for you.
Well, given I'm down half of one eye already, yes.
Yeah, you want to keep them. Yeah, they're useful. Okay. What's the best non-standard tool you've found?
Non-standard. I have a particular polished pebble that I use for burnishing vellum before I write on it. So yeah, probably that. It's an agate pebble from Birdling's Flat, and it's a tool that stayed in my calligraphy kit for decades, and yeah,
It's the right size.
it's not the right size, it's the right material.
Yeah. Okay. So particular agate's useful for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Do you have any guilty pleasures or dirty hacks?
Bang the rocks together.
Know how to bang the rocks. I mean, yeah. Sorry, having. I mean, I'm gonna have to talk flint nipping with you at some point because my archaeology studies and things. I have looked at these things and learned about balls of percussion and whatnot, and so it might be fun to bang a rock with you sometime.
The problem is we're in New Zealand.
Yeah.
There is flint here.
Yeah.
It's no good.
Oh no.
Because we're so seismically active that most of our flint becomes pre-shattered.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I worked because, as I said, studied archaeology. My 4th year when I was doing the honours course was a field archaeology in at the Buller River mouth, excavating a 13th century, 14th century site there. And we came across, I mean, it's very acidic soil, so pretty much everything was gone but the stones. And we came across obsidian. This was a while ago now. This was nearly 20 years ago. I remember the names of some of the stones because my classmates had songs that sing about them. I particularly remember obsidian. And we found argillite.
Yep.
And basically the idea was it was a fairly early site in terms of recency of initial occupation, and like the tools with the stones were coming from all around the country already, and they thought that was very interesting. So there are some stones within New Zealand that are useful.
Yeah.
Well,
and the major tool making stones in New Zealand are the obsidian from Mare Island and from Taupo.
Yeah.
And the argillite, which comes from a couple of inland valleys near Kaikoura.
Yeah.
But there are dozens of known stone sources that were accessed, and
it's just flint's not much use here.
The Kaikoura flint is not much use here. You find the occasional nodule that you can get a tool out of, but most of them are too badly shattered.
Yeah.
But that being said, there were sites where agate was mined for making flaked cutting tools.
Yeah.
But in particular, the major work that was done in New Zealand was making ground cutting tools.
Yeah.
You're roughly flaking things to shape, but then you are grinding to produce the highly polished cutting edges, and those are amazing treasures.
Yeah, is that something? Yeah, because that's when you don't have sanding tools, sandpaper and stuff, then it's grinding, isn't it?
Yeah. So there is a particular stone quarry on Banks Peninsula.
Yeah.
Famous for the stone because it was so useful for grinding adzes.
We may have found some of those tools in that dig. Yeah, I think I remember something about that too. But yes, no, I think I'd find it instructional, or at least moderately geeky, to bang rocks with you sometime. So what advice would you give to a newbie in any of your particular skill sets?
Read a book.
Yeah. And you maybe ask you and say which books are good.
Yeah. The difficult thing is developing the critical faculty to know where to search for information.
Yeah.
And this has been made worse in recent years because most of our search engines you used to 30, 40 years ago, you're walking into whatever library you had and interfacing with a card catalogue.
Yeah.
But now we're using search engines to find information. But the trouble is we have now got to the point where search engines, which were wonderful, now intentionally obfuscated because most of the commercially available ones built around trying to sell you something rather than you find the information you want.
And then a lot of other information is behind paywalls.
Yeah. Sci-Hub, cough, Sci-Hub.
Sci-Hub. Yep. Also, is it email the scientist? Maybe they'll send it to you for free.
Well, that's the thing. I do readily advise using Google Scholar, which has not been too badly damaged by the algorithms. And if you're trying to contact, if you have a particular paper, as a scientist, if someone emails me and say, "Do you have your paper on X?" I'll just send it to them.
Yeah.
Science only works if you can share it around.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you're after particular archaeological papers, if possible, just track down the author and ask them.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. What helps if you're stuck with ideas?
I walk away from it, and then my subconscious solves the problem later.
Yeah.
So I put things on the shelf sometimes for years at a time.
Yeah. That's what the naughty corner's for.
Yeah. And basically give yourself downtime, and a solution will present itself. Sometimes the solution is just burn it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it's, oh, this person might be able to help out, or have I tried this yet?
And the other problem is, unfortunately, I'm never stuck for ideas.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult question to ask me, because I have 30 or 40 projects on the go at once at any given time.
Yeah. Yeah. Not a problem you have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What medieval item that gives you particular joy and delight do you wish people would pay more attention to?
Particular knives.
Yeah.
There is a particular style of Viking Age folding knife.
Yeah.
I find a joy to use. And unfortunately, I'm currently between said knives because I've lost two of them. But yeah, there's a little sort of folding pocket knife that started being found in the Viking Age.
Yeah. Is it something we could find a picture of and show the nice people?
Not off the top of my head, but basically, if you have a small hand knife,
yeah,
they often are an exceptionally good tool to use. And there's several different styles, and I've always found, that they're fun to carve with. They're fun to use. You can have the same knife that has. It's the knife you carry in your pocket. You use it as your eating knife, and you use it as your wood whittling knife, as your butchery knife. Yeah, so just a particular small knife that's fun to use.
Okay, cool.
And, and the other one that I really enjoy is that flint scraper that I said earlier. Is that that is a tool that I've been using for 25, 30 years now.
So pay attention to knives and rocks.
Yeah.
Excellent. Knives and rocks. Okay. Are there any common misconceptions about things you do?
Oh, thousands of them. I've had people walk up to me when I've been melting copper alloys over a small charcoal fire and ask is that real fire question. Or someone watches me for 10 minutes as I'm casting, medallion after medallion.
Yeah.
And I hear them saying as they're walking away, he must be palming them somehow. Like, you can't melt metal over a fire that small. And these people, after watching me for 10 minutes of melting the metal in a little crucible and pouring it into the mold, finished objects in front of them, assumed that I was faking it.
Yeah, you need to.
So really,
moves, hands are clean.
Yeah, the misconception is that any technology sufficiently primitive is indistinguishable from magic to mine.
Here we go. Sorry, Elena has just actually shared a link to the folding knife So let me just quickly whack that up into a shareable screen so that people can get an idea. Loading, sharing screen. That one. So this one here.
Yeah, that's one of the more famous examples, and you'll notice that it has two blades. Not all of them do.
Okay, so you got that one there and that one there.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
whatever you're doing, and so you have a small blade and then a large blade.
yeah.
So,
and that's this page there. Okay, and so it's got a bone handle, and so would you be able to put the small blade away as well?
yes, so you can see that you can see the two slots cut in the outline, in the line drawing. There are the two bone plates are pinned together in several places.
Yeah.
But one of those pins is a hinge.
Okay.
Either side of the hinge, you can see
that one
rectangular slots. Yeah.
Okay.
Hinge. And so to bring out the large blade, you simply push the small blade around that hinge, and it into the handle, and the large blade comes out.
Okay.
And it stops on the pin you can see in the to the
on there.
That is the lock. That's a locking pin, so that's the blade in place while you're holding the handle.
But you said you have to have one blade out at a time, basically.
Yeah.
You want to be able to have both of them away.
No, it's a single blade.
Okay, you need to have a little cover for that one.
Yeah, they have. I think there've been at least one example has been found where there's the remnants of a sheath. So you can carry it in a sheath like a normal knife, but it have two blade options.
Okay, cool. All right, so those are things more people should have.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Elena, for sharing that. Okay, where was I up to in terms of questions and things? So we did pay attention to knives. Yes, you really can melt stuff on a small fire if you know how. So what's the best idea you're working on and why?
At the moment, depends what you mean by best idea. I have a Canon project that I've been working on for some time.
Yeah.
But it's stalled because there's a difficult piece of metallurgy that needs to be done.
Yeah. This question kind of melts in with what art excites you now. So excites or is interesting that you're working on.
Well, cannons are fun because they go bang.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I'm working on multiple yurt frames at the moment.
Yeah.
I want to explore using steam bending to make those more fully. So the best looking yurts that I've made are the ones where I've produced steam bent roof ring, tonneau rings, and uni roof poles.
Yeah.
So I want to do more of that and harder.
Yeah.
So I have 4 yurts under construction at the moment. And now, and I'd like to get them out of the way before October next year, but that will depend upon life and everything.
Yep.
So
yurts and cannons.
Yurts and cannons.
Exciting. So and I suppose we've already talked about this, but you don't really get boredom, but you do get burnout, and the way to avoid that is to learn how to say no.
Well, I guess I am perpetually bored, and I'm perpetually in a state of burnout.
Yeah, but you put things aside, or you say, I'd rather I taught you how, or showed you how and helped you learn.
Yeah, I sometimes parasitize off other younger people's enthusiasm.
Yep.
I do things on impulse a lot. But I have so many projects available that on any given impulse, I can pick up a project that I might have cast aside a decade ago and decide to finish.
Yeah.
I do not think you can avoid burnout. You just have to learn to accept it.
Yeah, and manage it.
Things will burn, and the pace of the last decade has burned me out multiple times. I've been burned by work and I've been burned out by my hobbies. Sometimes I have left entire hobbies for years at a time.
Yeah.
And I have in the past left the SCA for years at a time. And I haven't stopped doing the things that I do. I've just shifted and done them with a different group of people.
Yeah.
And I
makes sense, because if you're motivated by collaborative things, that if the people are being fractious, then doing it with someone else can help in three enthuse.
Yeah. And all peer groups move in cycles. There will be cycles of group burnout or politics or just change in relationships.
Yeah.
Mean you have to move around for your own peace of mind.
Yeah.
And so I don't think you can avoid burnout. You can reduce it, but you can't avoid it. Just try and never stop learning.
Yeah, because then there's always something new you can take up. Yeah. I've just seen Elena also commented, I think this may have been in response to the common ideas you're working on as Viking or historical hiking.
Yes, I have been doing a bit more of that, mostly 19th century stuff. So that is getting dressed up in the kit that your intended impression or character may have had.
Yeah.
And then seeing if you can survive in just that kit for several days while hiking or camping. So it's not
glamping like many people in the SCA might do. It's
no, not glamping. I mean, you and your weapon and your food and a bedroll on top of a mountain. That's, Now I've more been doing that in the 19th century military reenactment I do. I am interested in doing it in early medieval context, and I've been communicating and following with a number of people who've been doing that overseas. Hugh de Calais participated in quite a good. They joined a pilgrim route in Central Europe with a group of other European reenactors. And it was a route that had been followed by a particular knight and his retinue when returning from the Holy Land, and so they followed that route for a while. Yeah, equipment and with traveling with the equipment that would have been used at that time. Yeah, so would like to do more of that, and that is quite a steep learning curve because you quickly discover that your impulse is to take far too much equipment. Yeah. And you can do it with a lot less.
Which is we're learning what a rock will do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Comes in. Well, that basically finishes up all the questions I have. Was there anything else you wanted to bring up or mention?
Not off the top of my head. And some things might arise as people discover the video, if so.
So I suppose the question then becomes, so if someone has been watching this or watches this later and says, oh, that's interesting, or yes, that's a skill I would like to learn, not have you do for me, but learn, how best to contact you via the Facebooks or some other way?
Facebook via the Darton page is probably the easiest way to find me.
Yep.
I don't currently have a website per se, although I am on Tumblr as Weekend Viking.
Weekend Viking on Tumblr?
Yeah.
So WEEKEND Viking?
Yeah.
Viking on Tumblr. Okay, cool. So maybe they can see some pictures of things you're doing or have done.
Yeah. It is not a regular blog, but it's a blog at which I post things. But also, caveat, it's Tumblr.
Yeah. Okay. So if they want to find out, and if basically general rule is, if they want to learn a thing,
I just think
maybe if they want to know where some good books are or something, or good resources, you might be able to point them in the direction of a good resource.
And myself and Alina have an extensive research library. We have an interest in most aspects of early medieval culture.
Combined, you've got lots of sort of cover many areas.
Yeah, and we're probably Northern Europe and the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms.
Yeah,
our main area of operation
from early medieval to
migration era. So 500, 600, 700, 800 AD through to about 1000 AD.
Yeah,
where most of our interesting reenactment culture interests are. But also, I'm developing quite a sizable interest in Central Asia, particularly Sarmatian, Saka, and Scythian cultures.
Yeah. So Northern Europe and Scythian stuff. Yeah. Especially those amazing trousers. Just come to mind from those.
World's oldest trousers, yes.
Yes, with the wonderful pyramid shape gusset and things. Okay, neat. Fantastic. Well, hopefully we'll have Elena on at some point, since she did give me most of these questions. But otherwise, I will put how people can contact you up, and if anyone has any questions or further, they can be in touch with you. And so thank you once again for your time answering the questions, and I'll leave you to go and clean up that cup.
Right. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you very much. I will push the recording button now. Thank you.